Hey everybody, it's Mark Pattison. I'm back again and again. Have not stopped, even though I am now back from Mount Everest. That was a crazy adventure, but now I'm on to podcasting and trying to figure out what's next for me. And as always, please go and check out my website, www.markpattisonnfl.com. And you can find out a lot of cool things that are around the corner, of which the next big thing coming up is the NFL is filming a documentary on the Everest journey. That's going to be really cool. That's going to come out early September. And so links, trailers, where you can find it, all that stuff will be forthcoming again on that website. If you want to hear any of the podcasts, I've now done over 200, well over 100,000 people have downloaded. And it's just amazing, and I'm very grateful for everybody that has done so. But I've got a bunch of rock stars like the guy today, that are really incredible people doing amazing things, and I think their stories need to be heard. I also continue to raise money for Higher Ground here in Sun Valley, New York, and Los Angeles. It's a great organization. My daughter has epilepsy, and we're trying to get to the end of that. And it's just, I think everybody should give back, and it's a great way for me to do so. So if you want to find that, hit the philanthropy tab, and there's a link all the way back to Higher Ground. And that's that. So let me bring in my guest today. I've got a guy that I've been following for a long time, especially when the United States was at kind of the peak of the Tour de France. Tyler Hamilton, here he is, the one and only. How you doing?
Hey, doing well, doing well. How are you, Mark?
I'm doing fine, man. First of all, you're in one of the best parts of the world that I spent a lot of time. I grew up in Seattle, and so I drive an I-90 in route to go to a place I had for a long time down in Bozeman. You're in the
Yeah,
great city of Missoula, and
yeah.
it's such a great outdoorsy place. I'm sure you love it there.
I really love it here. Yeah, I've been here since 2012, and yeah, fallen in love with Montana and feel very lucky, very lucky. Yep.
Yeah, and so as you know, I live in Sun Valley. We're not too far away from each other, and the kind
Yeah,
of the whole mountain life is very similar between where I live. You're in a bigger town than I'm in, but University of Montana's there, and a lot of cool stuff happening. So, um, for those who don't know, you've got you're an amazing athlete. You've done some incredible things. I mean, how many people actually get to go ride in the Tour de France? You did that several times. You're one of the world's best riders. And I want to go back to kind of the beginning, and we'll get into your story, but like, where did this love of riding, and where did you find out? Because like, you and I could go out and ride today together and you'd kick my ass. I mean, I might be stronger than you are, but you just have those traits that make you, more swift on a bike. And maybe it's the characteristics of a body frame or something, but where did that talent first start to nurture for you?
yeah. My first love in terms of sport was downhill alpine ski racing, and yeah, and they would ski all winter, train all winter, and race, and then in the summertime, for cross training, that encourage us to ride our bikes. And yeah, I found riding your bike just really really freeing. It really kind of liberated you. I wasn't old enough to drive a car, but I could
Hmm.
ride my bike 3, 4, 5 towns away from the town I grew up in, Marblehead, Mass. And it was just awesome, having exploring new places, and yeah, just getting out and getting lost, getting away from my parents a little bit, and getting away from my brother and sister, and just going out. It was very yeah, just felt a sense of freedom.
It-
And
It's a,
so I always loved that, but and that's why I love it today. I don't really ride very seriously today, but I do like getting out and just having the wind blow through my hair, and seeing new places, and you know and kind of slowing down a little bit, smelling the roses, and yeah, just I love being out in nature. you know Here in Montana, I feel pretty lucky there.
yeah, it's amazing what happens when you get a little bit older. You start to spell the rest and slow things down a little bit. So
Oh yeah, oh yeah,
I
for
had
sure.
a friend of yours, I think, Floyd Landis, on the podcast a year ago, who's also another
Yeah.
Tour de France star and phenomenal rider. And when I was asking
Yeah.
him a similar question, he grew up, I think, somewhere in Pennsylvania, and his dad didn't allow him really to get out and ride. And so he'd sneak out the window at night when he was a youngster and go, ride, and like the wind going through his hair, as you described, it just gave him so much freedom and he felt so liberated. And while he was doing that, even though he didn't know at the time, he was just building kind of the muscle memory of what he needed, which would later in life really fuel him in his life,
Yeah.
journey and all that stuff.
Yeah. I always found that fascinating. Yeah. We'd have to sneak out at night to ride, and we'd ride without lights and be in the middle of, nowhere in Pennsylvania in the middle of winter. And yeah, it's a great story of Floyd's.
So we're going to fast forward just a little bit here. So where did it kick in? So you start off and you're doing the downhill thing, and at some point in time, I would imagine that when you're on a bike, you're going crazy downhill too. I don't like going crazy downhill. I like going crazy uphill, and then taking my time going down. But where did you switch from maybe a mountain bike, or maybe you've done this the whole time, into a road bike? And then you started entering some races and you're finding success. Like, give us a time frame when that all happened.
Yeah, at the end of my high school years, I started racing a little bit. I was still a ski racer at heart, but at least by racing, jumping in some races, it gave me a shorter term goal instead of training in June or July for a ski race in January. I was maybe riding in June, July, training for a race in August. So that definitely helped. I got the road cycling bug a bit then in high school, but it wasn't really until college. My sophomore year at college, I went to CU Boulder.
Mm-hmm.
I was training with dryland training with the ski team, and we were on mountain bikes and had a crash and broke 2 vertebrae in my upper back, and that was the first winter I couldn't ski since I was, I don't know, 6 years old. And yeah, when I got out of, I was in bed for like 6 or 8 weeks. And when I got out of bed, the doctor said I could ride a road bike. So yeah, and I had no idea, but Boulder's, was and is today a huge cycling town, bigger than a ski town for sure.
Wow.
And yeah, so I was running into just amazing cyclists out on the roads outside of Boulder. And so it was a great way to learn the sport. I was, rubbing elbows with professional riders and, top amateurs, and great way to learn. I learned a lot in those early years, and it was a really steep learning curve. I joined the CU cycling team, and, won a collegiate national championship, and then went on to race on the U.S. national team the next year, traveling all over the world, still being super green. And then I was a pro the following year. So it happened fast. And then 2 years after that, I was on the start line of the Tour de France.
So backing up, when you were going through this progression, as you were just talking about,
yeah,
were you the elite guy of the team? Were you like, hey, this guy's got a lot of potential, or did you have like streaks of greatness and then you still had a lot to learn? Or because with the way you just described it, that learning curve and your ascent to such,
yeah.
I mean, going all the way to the Tour de France, a couple of years later is insane.
Yeah.
So you must have
Yeah.
had this really great raw talent.
I mean, I think I had a big engine, and I think I had cycling is all about suffering,
Yeah.
it's like, I mean, I'm sure climbing the 7 summits, there's a lot of suffering, and, the better you can deal with it, the easier it is for you. So, I was good at that. I think I've kind of had that my whole life, the ability to kind of dig deep and not give up. So I think those were certainly helping me. But yeah, I mean, but I didn't really know how to, ride my bike that well, or, navigate my way through the peloton. So I did have success, but I did have plenty of failure along the way. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
now, like you said, this you're in college, you're a sophomore, you're riding, you're on the road bike, you're starting to enter some races, join the race team, that type of thing. And a couple of years later, you're at the starting line of the Tour de France. Was that with the U.S. Postal team?
That was the initial U.S. Postal team. It was under a different title sponsor in actually, my first year as a pro was with the initial Postal team.
Mm-hmm.
It was under a different title sponsor, but The first year I rode the Tour de France, yeah, that was with US Postal in 1997.
Okay. So, how does somebody like, this is where the whole Lance Armstrong thing starts to play in the picture a little bit. And how does Lance and the other guys on the team, how do they go recruit guys like you? How does that work?
Yeah, actually, I mean, I was on the team several years before Lance. He
Mhm.
came to I was on the team, started in 1995. Lance came to the team, I believe, in 1998.
Yeah.
So yeah, we recruited Lance. Lance was coming back from testicular cancer.
Yeah.
A lot of European teams turned their back to him. They didn't think he was going to be able to make a comeback.
Mhm.
Yeah, the U.S. the organization that ran the postal team, they threw Lance kind of a lifeline. This is kind of one of his last opportunities to race over in Europe, and luckily they did that. So yeah, that was in 1998, and he started out. It was kind of a rocky start for him. Like he didn't get back to his old level right away, and I think he had a lot of question marks. But eventually, towards the second part of that 1998 season, he did really well. Gave him a lot of confidence, and that's when he decided like he was going to focus 100% on the Tour de France the following year, for the '99 tour.
And how do they go about picking? I'm asking some general question because I was glued to the TV watching all those, those races you guys, were doing. And it was just so fascinating to me. And I just don't know the exact numbers, but there's two questions. Is number one, how do they pick the top guy? Like how do they pick the Lance of the team, or you were one of them, on a different team, but how do they pick the number one guy? And then how many other support riders are in those Peloton packs?
Yeah, I mean, back then, not today, the Tour de France starts tomorrow actually, but back then we would select 9 riders per team. Now it's eight riders per team. But yeah, that's like typically the best 8, or at least the best 8 working around your team leader. We had a ace in the hole with Lance Armstrong, and we had a strong supporting cast, and usually they pick the strongest guys, but also the ones that they know are going to dedicate themselves to the task at hand. And how do they pick the team leader like Lance? Like obviously with his history, he had a big history. Like he was world champion, and I believe it was 1993. And had a lot of success in like week-long stage races. And the year I was talking about, when he came back in 1998, he did really well in a race called the Vuelta a España, the Tour of Spain, which is also 3 weeks long. So, that gave the team a lot of I think he was 4th in that race, showed a lot of promise. And so, yeah, that gave the team a lot of confidence going into 99 that we're going to put all our eggs in that one basket, and, focus on him, and work on keeping him as fresh as possible to the most critical part of the race. So yeah.
Does that mean when you talk about being as fresh, does that mean then that if you are part of the support team, Lance is the leader, that you are then there's different guys are moving out in front, and he's drafting off of you, so he's not having to put out as much energy?
Yeah, it's a lot like NASCAR racing with the drafting, right? Drafting is so critical in a sport like bike racing. So honestly, like Lance, ideally Lance would not touch the wind, meaning like his nose wouldn't hit the wind until that most critical part of the race. And normally that's, when we hit like, the final climb or the second to last climb. We'd usually have it kind of targeted on paper, like where we're going to try to make our move. But yeah, we'd get him there as fresh as possible, so he'd always be in the draft. He'd never had to go back to the team car to get water bottles or food or anything like that. And, if it was, really cold and rainy, that's going back to get rain jackets or more gloves or whatever, just really cater to him and make sure, he stays as fresh as possible and as comfortable as possible.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so what was I don't want to know details on this, but just, a general overlay. So like when the US Postal team or or whatever team that you're riding for, do they come up and there's X amount of prize money and then you guys split that equally, or how does that what's your incentive to like keep together as a team and keep it going?
I mean, the incentives, I mean, yeah, I mean, if you have a good race, the the sponsors are happy and they continue to support your team, so and if you do a good job yourself personally, the team's going to rehire you, and you're going to have a job for the next couple of years, maybe. The prize money, typically that's kind of divided up within the riders and the staff. Typically if you do win the tour, the rider that wins the tour will typically not take their split, because they have a lot of probably endorsement money coming in. That's how it usually works, regardless of who wins the tour. That's how it's worked over the years. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of incentives. There's incentive to do well, to keep your team going. Sponsors come and go in cycling, too much. It's unfortunate, but it's there's always a fight for sponsorship, for that big kind of corporate sponsorship. And but yeah, you keep them happy with good results and they're going to keep coming back.
So I'm now about 32 days back, because we're doing this podcast on the 25th of June, and I'm about 20 or 32 days coming off of Mount Everest. And about a week ago, I watched the movie Everest, for the first time. And this is all about the 1996 disaster that happened, and really between Scott Fisher and Rob Hall. And there were two guides that were guiding these people up. And then they got in bad weather, and they didn't turn around when they're supposed to turn around, and so on and so forth. And so where I'm going with this is that they broke all the rules in the mountaineer world, because their greater agenda was to try to have everybody summit, so it would help them in the following years as they were trying to market their machine, which means they would make more money. Okay.
Yeah, right.
Okay, coming back to kind of the whole tour, especially in that era. I saw a video that you were in, that you had been in this race. It wasn't the tour, but you've been in this race, and it just knocked you out. Like, you were physically so spent. And then when you came back in and you're sitting down, there's a doctor that had come in and said, if you don't want your body to be so torn up and you want to be fresh and you want to, come back strong the next day, then take this little red pill. Right. And so, you're listening to authority, and, you're in what everybody else is doing. And so you're part of the team, you want to be a team player. And so what was that moment like for you in terms of, kind of stepping across the threshold?
Oh yeah, that was a turning point in my career. It was that was kind of when I went from just being a green, wide-eyed kid from Marblehead, Massachusetts, to stepping a little bit into that dark underworld. It was in the spring of 1997. Just finished a week-long stage race in southern Spain, and I was lying on my bed like a starfish, just exhausted. And that was my first full season racing in Europe. And we had a few team doctors, and one of them came into my room and kind of sat me down and was praising me on how well I had been doing. And I was still really green, and let me know that that I could be a little bit more professional. And that's when he kind of pulled out a little red testosterone pill and told me that I needed to do this. So yeah. And it was at the time, this was a really well-respected doctor, and he'd worked with big champions over the last decade. And for me, it was like, wow, this is my opportunity to kind of go from the B team to the A team within the team. I was pretty sure doping was happening within my team at the time, but I wasn't seeking it out. Then it kind of sought me out a little bit. And, and at that point, we were potentially 2 months away from riding in the Tour de France. We had to be selected as a wild card team that year. And I honestly, if if I said no, I don't think I was going to be racing in the Tour de France. So yeah, for me at that moment in time, there was no question. So I swallowed the pill and, thought about it later.
Could you actually feel the difference?
So that was at the end of a race, and we had a couple days off, and then we did a 1-day race. 2 or 3 days, I think 3 days later, and yeah, I felt honestly a little bit more recovered. I didn't do anything spectacular that next race, but I did feel like my legs, my body recovered, better than I expected. So that's what testosterone does.
Yeah. So I want to be clear.
And then that
I,
led. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say that to be fair to kind of the way you're describing this right now, that I want to bring anybody that's listening to this into my world just a little bit. And back when I was playing football, there's all kinds of designer steroids that for linemen it would make you huge, for wide receivers like myself, for running backs would make you quicker, faster, type of thing. And the temptation is there, because you want to be in that pole position. You want to be picked on that team. You want to get the edge any way that you possibly can. And, people do it in different ways. And so I can relate to what you're saying in terms of the opportunity. You're in Europe and you want to be part of the gang. You want to be part of that first team.
Yeah. Yeah. And I wasn't, I wasn't really ready to pack my bags and head home yet, and I kind of felt like if I didn't say, just kind of nod and kind of follow orders, that I might be heading home sooner than later, and I wasn't ready to kind of give up on kind of my dream.
Yeah, totally. I can totally relate to that. And it does become a dream, and the Tour de France became so high profile too. As you got further down, you said this happened 2 months before the tour. As you got closer and closer to the race, how much pressure, once you had kind of stepped across that threshold, were you getting from Lance or other higher ups on the team?
Lance wasn't even on the team yet. So
there's no pressure.
That was in 1997. No, there's still pressure. There's plenty of Lance. I mean, Lance is and there's pressure everywhere. Yeah. There was but we were a scrappy young Tour de France team, barely squeaking our way into the tour. There was pressure to get results for sure. Mm-hmm. But I mean, there was every team, every rider had pressure. I mean, it's the way it is in cycling. I mean, for tomorrow we have the 2021 Tour de France starting, and there's 190, 200 riders with a ton of pressure on them.
Yeah. No, I get it. The
pressure they put on themselves, pressure they feel maybe from their families and friends. And then you have the sponsors. Like, without a good tour, sponsors are going to start scratching their head and thinking maybe we go elsewhere, or maybe we don't support this rider next year. So, I mean, it's probably similar to football. If you don't have a good season, maybe they give you another chance. But if you had 2 back-to-back bad seasons, right? I mean, maybe you're begging for a job, right? So
or cut.
Or cut. Yeah.
which I felt. No, I totally get that. Okay, so
real quick, congratulations on your Everesting summit. That's awesome. Awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, it was crazy up there. Yeah.
Good for you.
Well, one of the things you do up there for supplemental to get a boost, because you're so low on air, is to have you have oxygen on your back.
Yeah, sure.
And, I ran out twice and did that. It got pretty scary up there at 26.5.
Oh man!
I spent the whole night with no oxygen.
Oh wow!
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
They say it's like breathing through a straw. Is that true?
Yeah.
Wow.
So I mean, if you are just going for a hike and going up a steep hill at sea level, that's hard enough. You're going to be breathing, but you take a third of the air out. It's just quadruple. It's a step, and you gotta rest. And there's no joke around that. It's real.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's fast forward when you guys were at your peak. You're winning the tour. You guys are rock stars. I mean, life was great for you guys. your team. You had a lot of really talented team members in there. But you had a whole thing going on with, now this is the whole team. I know this isn't just you, but the whole blood transfusions and all this kind of stuff. How difficult was that when, when the people that were supposed to be in charge were coming and trying to do blood samples and sneaking around and all that? I'm imagining this, like what you had to do to like get these things done when there's so much attention and focus on every move that you're making, thousands of people, thousands of cameras, all that
Yeah.
stuff. I mean, how'd you navigate that?
Just stressful, but I mean, trying to stay cool in the pocket kind of thing. Like just, it was, you lived a double life, it was the life that everyone thought you led. And then you kind of had this secret life where there was, you're, this deception. And, there were a few people that kind of seemed like they knew or had an inclination what was going on within the pro peloton, but most people didn't know, and it was a couple layers beneath the surface, and it was, but yeah, highly stressful. But you just try to bury it in the back of your head and not think about it, because you're always going at 100 miles an hour. You're racing all season long and traveling a ton and all that, but the truth would rear its ugly head. Usually for me, it would be in the middle of the night. I'd wake up and, stare at the ceiling for half hour or hour and kind of just think about, what I was doing and, what could happen if it all went bad, and honestly, I was like, in my first tour, there was 200 plus riders, and I'd be surprised if 5 were clean.
Yeah.
And so I always thought to myself, how is this massive secret? Like, how's it not come out? Because everyone seemed to be in the know. And so, yeah, that was a big stress of mine for sure. But I just kept pushing in the back of my head and trying not to think about it too much, try not to let it like affect me. But yeah.
So what I want to do now is I want to like take a gigantic leap forward, and because you're doing some really cool stuff and you're a good dude. And at the end of the day, you have this, I really identified with this. You have this quote that I saw, and you had a quote that you had said. I think you said this about the power of truth will really set you free. And so, you just to fill the gap, you end up at some point in time, it all came out, and now you're going before a grand jury, and they're really trying to like circle around Lance and bust him because he was so defiant. And so between you and Floyd and some others, they kind of got enough guys that were around that finally just said, I'm not going to carry this baggage on my back anymore. I'm not going to live with this, and I just need to set myself free. And so going again back to the power of truth. What was that like when, I'd be petrified if the grand jury called me and you're in Los Angeles and you're going between, to go like, what's my fate going to be? And you could either continue to be defiant like Lance was for all those years, or you could say, you know what, I'm just going to it is what it is, and it's over, and we're going to come clean. And that just must have been so freeing for you, like not having to wake up anymore, like this big secret that you're trying to keep from everybody.
Yeah. Well, it was incredibly freeing, but I was defiant for a long time. I got caught with doping, but I was 100% sure I wasn't going to, tell the truth, because I didn't want to take down anybody. And I was going to take down any of my brothers, my fraternity mates. And, when the federal investigator, Jeff Davitsky, first reached out to me, he asked me to come in and do a proffer, which is like, you come in voluntarily, you can have a lawyer by your side. And this is for this federal investigation. And I was, no way, Jose, I'm not, I was too hard-headed. I'm not, telling the truth about the big secret, and that's when I got subpoenaed, which means you come in, you better tell the truth. And if not, they can, put you in handcuffs and throw you in jail. So that's the one. Once I got subpoenaed, it was like, okay, I backed up and backed up and backed up, and it was either, tell the truth or, jump, basically.
Mhm.
And yeah, it was, sat there in a Los Angeles courtroom for 7 hours and told the whole truth. And it was, I'd say the turning point in my life, really. It wasn't all roses after that, that's for sure. But it was, from that moment on, I knew like the truth is what I need to focus on, and, put that ego aside and be open and honest. Like, that's what my parents taught me. And so yeah. I went into that, Los Angeles courtroom more or less like kicking and screaming, with a 100-pound backpack, maybe a 150-pound backpack. And I came out and the backpack was gone. And, the sky was a little bit bluer, the grass was a little bit greener, and I could see, I started to feel happy and kind of free, a little bit free again, And from there, I knew that, I knew there were a lot of powers above that might affect this investigation. I knew most likely it wouldn't go forward, and it didn't. And so everything I said in front of that grand jury was sealed. And so if the investigation didn't go forward, everything I said was going to just, be destroyed. And so that's when I decided to kind of got an opportunity to speak with 60 Minutes, and I opened up to them, and then after that, I still felt like that was not even close to enough, and I wrote a book about just the good, the bad, and mostly the ugly.
The Secret Race.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yep. It was one of the top books of 2012. Which is incredible. When I talked to Floyd Landis, and he went through a similar thing. He won the Tour of Salt, and he was very defiant, and finally just couldn't handle it anymore, and he broke. And then a lot of this stuff came out. It doesn't sound like, and maybe you have a different relationship, that he and Lance are anytime we're going to go get a cup of coffee. More that Floyd is completely forgiven. Like, it's all good, and let's just move forward with his life. And that's for him, his healing. But it sounds like, Lance is not in the same place as it relates to at least Floyd.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm really grateful for Floyd for kind of helping getting the ball rolling. And that kind of gave me confidence that, hey, I can tell the truth. And, before I never even thought about it. I'm like, that was so far off in the distance. Like, I was so set on, this is what I have to do. This is, I'm in this fraternity. I can't, I don't want to speak out against my fellow brothers, but it was, Floyd kind of opened my eyes a little bit. And I feel so lucky because of it. Because maybe today I'd still be holding on to these deep, dark secrets, spinning around somewhere with my head spinning, and just life's changed a lot. Certainly it's been bumpy at times along the way. Like, when you tell a big secret like that, there are consequences, right? So but who your true friends are. When you go through something like this, who really has your back. And you work, I'm really lucky to have really good friends and family that have been supportive over the years, that really had my back. And not everybody made it through unscathed. Some aren't here today to talk about it. They went through doping scandals, and they're not alive today. And that's unfortunate that a lot of people just turn their backs to them. So I feel lucky. I don't talk to Lance today, but I don't. There was a time I didn't like him at all, but that's I'm hoping for the best for him, and everybody. I'm rooting for everybody.
It's awesome. Yeah. So what does life look for you today? I know you live in Missoula, Montana. What does it look for you? It sounds like the company that you're with, Blacksmith, sounds really invigorating and cool. But what is like, you've just like me, right? I feel like I see these football pictures, especially with this whole Everest thing, and the NFL got involved in it, and they're doing a film. and so a lot of my career from 30 years ago has
Yeah, right.
kind of come like full circle around again. But look at that guy that was me in the helmet
Yeah,
and pads and getting lit up by all these rock
yeah,
star football players, and I can't relate to that guy because my life is so much
yeah.
different than it is today. What's that for you?
Yeah, well, yeah, that's interesting, Mark. They say every cell in your body changes every 7 years. So, you are completely different than your old self, really. Life's changed a lot. Yeah, I moved up here to Missoula, Montana from Colorado. Yeah, in 2012. Yeah, I work for a money manager now in Denver called the Black Swift Group. I've been working for them for about 2 years. I'm on the business development side of things. We work with a bunch of athletes and some top pro cyclists, which has been a lot of fun. So it's kind of helped me kind of come, not full circle, but back around, we were just at the U.S. National Championships in Knoxville, Tennessee, supporting some of the athletes that we work with. And yeah, it's been a complete career change. Right when I stopped cycling, the only thing I felt like I knew was cycling. So I started a coaching business, which I still have today. But I kind of stumbled around trying to find something else as well. I tried my hand in real estate. I did that for a year here in Missoula, but that wasn't my thing. I did a bunch of public speaking after the book came out, kind of traveled all around the world for that. But I'm glad that period's over because it was just kind of talking a lot about my past. And probably about 2.5 years ago, the chief investment officer, Greg Casals from Black Swift Group, asked if I'd come down to Denver and talk with him. And he thought I'd be really good on the business development side of things. And, I thought he was crazy, but he convinced me it was a good idea. And 2 years later, over 2 years later, here I am. I had to pass my Series 65 exam, which is a tough one if you hadn't really studied in a long time. So, it's been fun. I love helping people in any way I can, and helping people make better risk-adjusted returns on their money. It's a great thing, and people. Money doesn't make the world go round, but it does. It certainly helps, right? It helps. It's people. If people make better returns on their money, they're a lot less stressed, and they can focus on doing better things with that money. And so I help people manage their money. I help people, I coach people. So we help, coaching athletes, cyclists, mountain bikers, triathletes. And I also like helping people. I give back a lot to the fight against multiple sclerosis. So I'm on a board of directors called Can Do MS. They're based in the Vail Valley there in Colorado, teaching people suffering with MS and their support partners how to lead a better life. So the founder was this guy, Jimmy Hugo, a friend of mine who passed away in 2010 due to MS complications. He was a bronze medalist in the 64 Olympic Games in alpine ski racing. Yeah. And was by the 68 Olympics was starting to feel symptoms of MS. So he had to close one eye in his Olympic slalom because he was had double vision, and by 1970, they diagnosed him with MS. And, back then they didn't know much about the disease. And so they said, just sit on the couch and save your energy. So he did that for a few years. And then he said he was really sad and depressed. And he said, I'm going to do what I can do. And so he started getting out and exercising, doing what he could do with this disease. And so, he started this foundation, and, I'm on the board of directors today. It's called Can Do MS. But Jimmy Hugo started it. And amazing individual. I never heard him complain once. And, MS slowly took his life. And I'm on the board of directors at Can Do MS, and I put on a ride every year called MS Global. And this year it'll be in Bend, Oregon in September.
Great spot.
So yeah.
Well, good for you. And I really believe that Tim McGraw's got this great song, Humble and Kind. You know, if you get to where you're going, make sure you turn around and help the next person. Always be humble and kind,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Yeah, and that's what you're doing.
It's
And
your obligation. I feel like it's my obligation.
it is. And
Yeah,
you know, we all go through it. You've got a hell of a story. You know, you had some ups and downs and you had some
yeah,
triumphs and you've been in some valleys, but you know, at the end of the day, it's where you're standing,
yeah,
not
yeah.
where you've been, but you've learned and you're doing some really wonderful things out there, helping people, turning around and with this organization. So, you know, good for you. And thanks for your honesty too, for coming on the pod and just calling it as it was. And you know, there's nobody out there that's listening today that's perfect, and we all,
Oh, yeah.
you know, we all experience these ups and downs. That's the reason why the name of this podcast is called Finding Your Summit. And so you certainly have found your way going forward. So where can people reach you? Is there a
Um,
website?
let's see. I mean, yeah. The Black Swift Group. They have a website there. They're money manager in Denver. You know, you could go to candoms.org to support the this MS nonprofit. My coaching business is Tyler Hamilton Training. Pretty easy there.
Cool.
Yeah. You know, I mean, I don't do much social media these days, but I'm on there somewhere.
All right.
You
Cool.
know,
Well,
but and then you know, I business wise, I'm on LinkedIn a lot.
yeah.
So you know, but yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of boring, but you know.
I don't know about that, but I'm going to hook you up with my buddy in Missoula, Montana. Paul's Pancake House. Mike Ramos is the owner, and you're going to get nice and round, and you write all those calories off soon. So listen, I appreciate it. Thank you so much for coming on. He is the one, the only Tyler Hamilton.